Did you know that young Jewish pioneers who came to the land of Israel in the beginning years and decades of the Zionist movement lived in small, very communal communities called Kibbutzim? Shalom, friends. This is the Akiva with Israel in 5, where we give you everything Israel in 5 minutes. Please like and subscribe. And if you have any questions or want to keep the conversation going, please do so below in the comments. Kibbutzim, it comes from the word likabet, which means bring together in Hebrew. And this was a way that many of the young Jewish pioneers who came to the land of Israel in the beginning years and decades of the Zionist movement lived. They came from Russia mainly. Many of them lived in urban environments. They came to the land of Israel. It's the first time that they were ever farming, the first time they were ever living outside of cities. And they came to these open and mostly empty areas, and they started to build communities, very small ones, sometimes 10 people, 20, 30, 40, 50 people, right? They built a few buildings and they started to farm the land after they purchased the land from the landowners. And one of the reasons why they decided to live in such a communal together kind of way was simply for survival. Right? There weren't supermarkets everywhere. There weren't all the different kinds of resources and services that we have today. And they had to literally live by the work of their own hands. And they realized, of course, that working together and being together and living together and sharing is probably going to enable us to survive and succeed to the best of our ability. Right, so they lived in these small kind of agricultural settlements, so to speak, dotted around the land of Israel. The first kibbutz was created in 1909 on the shores of the Kinneret, of the Sea of Galilee. And from there, they started to spread it, and this became kind of a movement. The idea of living together in these small communal agricultural villages, settlements, really took off, and eventually dozens, and then hundreds, and then eventually thousands of these kibbutzim were created well into the existence of the state of Israel. Some of them actually still exist today. Now, there were some other reasons why they decided to live like this, not just for survival reasons. Some of them were coming from Russia, as I said, and they got into all kinds of political movements like socialism, right? And this idea of working together and the value of working hard, which was a very, very strong value in the beginning years and decades of the Kibbutzim movement. And this idea of sharing in the resources, owning together, right? Communal ownership of the means of labor, right? And then splitting the fruits of the labor, right? Very much came from the different political movements that they were learning about: socialism, Marxism, communism, from their time living in Russia. And they brought those ideas and their values with them, and they implemented them into these communities that they were creating, called, again, kibbutzim. And this is the way that they really lived. Again, for many, many decades, well into the existence of the state of Israel, post-1948. And they lived very, very together, very, very communally, owning everything together and splitting everything that kind of came out of that. A classic kibbutz, I'll just give you a couple of examples of how they shared things. Each person or family had a tiny little house, right? The same size, looks the same, barely a kitchen, a little kitchenette in the corner. Why? Because they didn't cook meals in their own homes. They ate together, right? They had a dining hall where they ate 3 meals a day, okay? People didn't own their own cars. The kibbutz owned a certain number of cars, and people used them. They signed the cars out, right? Even clothing, right? They would share. They would go to the laundry once a week, pick out a number of jeans, pants, shirts, t-shirts, underwear, whatever, use it, bring it back to the laundry, get cleaned, and then it would be available for people to take the next week. And you didn't always get the same pair of pants, so to speak, week after week. And so these are some of the examples and some of the ways that they did share in the ownership of all the things on the kibbutz. I'll give you a very extreme example. What if a kid growing up on a kibbutz, has grandparents that live in America, and they send him a nice red bicycle for his 9th birthday? Well, guess what? That bicycle now belongs to the entire kibbutz. Of course, he'll get to use it, but it'll be owned by the entire kibbutz, and other kids will get to use it as well. And these are the values, and these are the ways that children growing up on the kibbutzim learned how to live, learned how to share. Now, it has a lot of great idyllic values and ways to it, and many, many positive things. because, they're humans, problems did arise. And as a result, a lot of the kibbutzim started to privatize. And today, many, many, many of the original communal kibbutzim that shared everything, did everything together, everything was equal. Again, like, for example, once TV started coming out, no one on a kibbutz would get a TV until the kibbutz had enough money to get everyone a TV. Right? Again, just this idea of equality was very, very strong in the kibbutzim. But again, many of the kibbutzim have privatized, and now people, will own their own things and do their own thing more and more. Sometimes on many of the kibbutzim, the dining hall is completely closed down and people cook their own meals. On some kibbutzim, they cook their meals during the week, and on the weekend or Shabbat, they'll have a meal together. But it's a very, very fascinating and important part of the history of the development and the creation of the state of Israel, because the people who came in the early waves of immigration, many of them lived like this and really, formed the culture of what would be the state of Israel, right? And this idea of working hard and thinking about others, and it's not just about me, became a really, really big part of the state of Israel's ethics and value system, especially in the early years of the state. I'll show you one last example of what it meant to live on a kibbutz. Many of the people would work on the kibbutz in the fields, doing other things around the kibbutz, maintenance, whatever, teaching the children. But what if someone was, like, let's say, a brain surgeon? Could they work off the kibbutz? Of course. They go to the hospital, they do all their amazing brain surgery that they did, and the money that they got, the check they got, the salary, didn't go to them. It went to the kibbutz and was equally divided amongst the people. I remember visiting a kibbutz some years ago, and the person who we were visiting said, look, I might have a very small house, but my backyard is huge. And what she meant by that is that the whole kibbutz is her backyard, so to speak. They built them in a way that the roads went around the kibbutz, and inside was really just more for walking paths, big open areas of grass. You had swimming pools and basketball courts, play areas, parks, playgrounds, all kinds of things that everyone got to use communally. So we see a little bit about the kibbutzim. And how they started in the early decades of the Zionist movement, and how they really became a big part, an important part of the eventual state of Israel, and then eventually how they got more used to modern day life after many, many decades of following their original model. Maybe one day you'll come to Israel and you'll visit one of these kibbutzim for yourself.